It always has to be someone else's fault. It has to be someone else's fault. I think the apartheid system has taught South Africans, some South Africans, not all South Africans, I should admit, because some South Africans are very progressive, are living their lives, are very successful, are making money, and are doing everything that they can do in order to survive and live a life of real total enjoyment. But there are those South Africans who have been educated into thinking that, have been schooled into thinking that it has to be someone's fault. If they are suffering, it has to be someone's fault. If they can't have enough food to eat today, it has to be someone else's fault. And because they've always been blaming the apartheid system during the apartheid era, it is now it has to be someone else apart from the apartheid system that used to oppress them. That's why I think South Africans, which conclusion I've already made, that South Africans, I think, have got a culture of these riots and protests, and because that's all they knew during the time of apartheid. They have to go into the street and demonstrate about one thing or the other. They have got to put stones into the street. They have got to burn some tires to soothe their super hungry egos. It's very frightening. They are products of apartheid. I shouldn't blame them, but I have to blame them to some extent, because if you can't analyze your life and make sure that you straighten your life through very, very noble and very, very straightforward ways, other than protesting, then you are missing the point. You've failed as a human being. South Africans, if you look at the news in South Africa, there are South Africans who are protesting almost every day about one thing or the other. And which means that they have to blame someone. Every day they wake up to make a living, they have to wake up and blame someone else. It is either the government or the illegal immigrants or the immigrants, or maybe it has to be some companies, it has to be some political party, it has got to be ANC. It has to be something for them to be satisfied. They have to wake up and decide today, who am I going to blame? And maybe they make money out of it, I don't know how. But that is what is happening in South Africa. Operation Dudula. Looking at those women, stripping off their clothes, or rather trying to make sure that they strip off they are talking about, it's very worrying. If you were to go on the internet and do your own research, which I think these people should do, and maybe which I think these people cannot do, I don't think they are literate enough to go on the internet and research. The South African population is about 60 million people. I think this group of people forms only a small fraction of uneducated and uninformed South Africans who think they know everything when they know nothing. If they are to go on the internet and do some research on maybe on illegal immigration, they would know that research in America has shown that illegal immigrants increase the size of the U.S. economy, contribute to economic growth, enhance the welfare of natives, contribute more in tax revenue than they collect, reduce American firms' incentives to offshore jobs and import foreign produced goods, and benefits consumers by reducing the prices of goods and services. And economists estimate that legalization of the illegal immigrant population would increase the immigrants' earnings and consumption considerably and increase U.S. gross domestic product. That is, to make those illegal immigrants who are in America illegal would increase and will benefit America in the long run. And there is scholarly consensus that illegal immigrants commit less crime than natives. Which assumption they are making in South Africa after making no study? They haven't studied anything. There is no empirical evidence to support what they say. They think that illegal immigrants are the ones committing crime. In America, they did a study and established that illegal immigrants commit less crime than the natives, than people who live in country, than citizens, to use a common name that is used everywhere. In the United States, they've enacted some laws and adopted policies designed to avoid prosecuting people solely for being in the country illegally, because they say they have no statistically meaningful impact on crime and may reduce the crime rate. Research suggests that immigration enforcement has no impact on crime rates at all. This means that you taking, catching illegal immigrants and putting them in trucks and putting them in prisons and then, shipping them out of the country into their countries of origin actually does not reduce the rate of crime or does not help with the crime at all. As Becky Cele was suggesting that 12 were from Zimbabwe, even when he was at a crime scene without verifying anything, a police chief, a police minister making conclusions without any proper investigation, without any proper any proper inspections of the people. Is making conclusion that these people, most of them are from Zimbabwe, which was later on established that he was just lying. It's just some prejudice that exists that is so stupid. US in the United States, which is the leading economy in the world, which is the richest country in the world, most successful democracy in the world. I'm giving it as an example because it is the most successful and the richest country in the world. They are what they call sanctuary cities, and leaders of sanctuary cities say they want to reduce the fear of deportation and possible family breakup among people who are in the country illegally, so that such people will be more willing to report crimes, use health and social services, and enroll their children in schools. In the United States, municipal policies include prohibiting police or city employees from questioning people about their immigration status and refusing requests by national immigration authorities to detain people beyond their release date if they were jailed for breaking local laws. Because they have realized the benefit of illegal immigrants, they even discourage questioning people. Where do you come from? Are you coming from? Do you have all the papers and things like that? They discourage such things. They realize the value of illegal immigrants. And I think the South African governments do realize the value of illegal immigrants. But to explain this to stupid people who are blockheads, who are thick in the head, it's just a waste of time, and I think it's very expensive. That's why the South African government sometimes just ignore these people until they've run out of steam, or until they just get fed up, or until someone has paid them off so that they stop doing what they are doing. They just ignore them because they know that illegal immigration is not totally a disadvantage. It has got a lot of benefits than disadvantages that it brings to the country. And they say that South African citizens have got to be given the priority for employment at jobs. How did that priority fall on foreigners if while South Africans have always been there? The South Africans have always been there and these jobs have always been available to them. How is the priority slipped on to foreigners? You must ask yourself that question. Maybe it's a matter of attitude. Because some of these jobs, they really need somebody with the proper attitude. You might have the qualifications, but if your attitude is wrong, you can't do the job. I saw one of these people who was stopping trucks, who were making sure that trucks driven by foreigners are stopped and maybe are parked on the side of the road, failing to drive very truck that they had impounded. They think it's so easy. They don't know that you have to have attitude, you have to have skill, you have to have experience, you have to have a lot of other things. For you to be an employee, you just don't have to be just a person. To just have you to be a South African so you are employable. It is much more deeper and much more complicated than that. And where do these South Africans, these foolish, uneducated, where do they get the idea that you can just go and get a job without going through an interview and then passing the interview? 4% is the number. The foreigners in South Africa, illegal immigrants, or rather, all the foreigners, both the illegal and legal immigrants included, they constitute about 4% of the South African population, which means that of the South African unemployment rate falls at 46%, which means that if we are going to take all the foreigners, those who are illegal and illegal with their children and everyone, some of them are not even working in South Africa. They are just staying with their families, with their brothers and sisters who are working. A lot of them are not even working. Some are children who are going to school. If we take all of them and bind them together, they only solve about 4% of the South Africans' unemployment problem. So this is a very, very, very unsupported and very unresearched conclusion made by these Operation Dudula people. And I have to stress that not by South Africans, by Operation Dudula individuals who are somehow crazed in the head. And for you to be, I saw some of these ladies, you can watch it there. I think I'll have to put a video of this so that you can see these ladies. These ladies want to be employed. You know, for you to be working in a restaurant, you have to be a lady of real standing. You can't just be any lady like the ladies that I was seeing there and watching in horror as they shouted. You can't be, for people to judge you, who you were, how you were born, what kind of birth you had. They listen to what you say in times of an argument, and would listen to these ladies during these times of argument and realize that they can't work in restaurants. And their children, because their children will always, they say an apple will never fall far away from the tree. Their children will just be like them, so they can't work in restaurants. They have to be really, they have to have a proper attitude for them to be employed in the hotel industry. And you know what's funny? I think this the Operation Dudula or Dudula movement, as it is come out to be nowadays. Recently, there's been a splinter group called the Dudula movement, different from Operation Dudula, which is terrorizing people there in Alexandra. If they would really do some research, they would understand that you can't fix immigration problems this way, or employment or unemployment problems this way. This is no way of fixing problems. Rather, they are creating more problems than they can ever care to fix. There is one good thing that the South African apartheid regime did very well for themselves, is the South Africans' fear of the white man. South Africans can fight their own fellow Africans, and they can fight their very poor. This is a poor man's war, because the South Africans who are fighting those illegal immigrants are poor South Africans fighting poor illegal immigrants, forgetting to fight their real enemy. They can't confront their real enemy. They can't connect the people who still make them poor by total disposition of their land. They don't have the land right now, and what they feel they should have is to have a job as a attendant in a restaurant. What kind of a person who is going to say, or what kind of a person, what kind of a human being, what a schooled human being would think that he is fighting for the benefit, he's fighting for his children? You are sending your children to school so that they can come and work in the restaurants. Is that your ambition? Is that why are you even sending them to school? You are fighting for scrums that the foreigners come and grab, the scrums that the foreigners are picking up. That is what you are fighting for. Why don't you fight for better jobs anyway? These are your children, and you mean your children. The only thing that you can do for your children is to make sure that they work in the restaurants. What does this say about you people? What does it say about you South Africans who are engaged in this Operation Dudula? It says a lot about yourselves. It says a lot about what kind of people you are, and what kind of mentality you have, and what kind of education you have received. You are, I don't want to say words against you, but it says a lot about you actually. You really want to protect jobs in the hotel industries. Which real educated South Africans, the educated South African, the elite of South Africa would not even look at, would not even regard, would not even go and join, even if there's nothing else for them to do. That is what you are fighting for. Because I've heard some of you saying that, hey, we are fighting to protect these jobs for our children. Are you really sending your children to school, and what kind of schooling are they really getting? How can you fight for scrums in your own country? How can you fight for things that are dropping from the table in the country that you call your motherland? People are getting married to Zimbabwe. Of course, some of you cannot get married to Zimbabwe. I've seen some of you ladies, some Zimbabweans who are there, are really smart, handsome young men who really would prefer something better. But some people are getting married to Zimbabweans. Getting married and having smart children, from these Zimbabweans that you are chasing away. Some people are even angry with you right now for chasing away their husbands, or rather for destroying their husbands' means of livelihood, or destroying their wives. Some are married to South African men, some are married to South African women, and you are just disturbing them. You are a nuisance not only to Zimbabweans. You are a nuisance to everyone. You are a nuisance to Zimbabweans. You are a nuisance to other illegal immigrants or immigrants, and you are a nuisance to South Africans who really reason better and think better and plan better. Don't think that you are only enemies of Zimbabweans. No. Actually, the problem is much complex than you would really understand. You are a nuisance to the government because the government knows that it's making money out of these illegal immigrants. And this guy, this guy is saying he concerned military veterans. I don't understand, but I don't think South Africa went into a real war to gain their independence. I think it was these street brawls that they are still carrying out nowadays that might have given them freedom, but also through negotiations. And we see these young men calling them leaders of veterans, or really South Africa needs to go to war maybe to understand what a real war, to understand the value of human life. Sometimes these South Africans just kill people because they don't understand the value of human lives, because they have never been through a war. They might have had or whatever they have, but the truth is South Africa never went into a real war. They were never involved in a real war. These street ups and downs, running up and down, whose tradition they got maybe from a time when they were fighting for their liberation, is what is confusing them. You go into a street wearing military gear and maybe some bulletproof, and you think that you are into a war, you are fighting some war of some kind. You really need to be involved in a war. The problem with South Africa, I think, your freedom was given to you. There were only a few people who were involved in the real fight for freedom. But most of you just received your freedom on a platter without going into the bush to fight real war against the apartheid government. And you are making assumptions. This hallucination that you are in a war, you are fighting something, is something that you need to get out of your mind. Because if you need a real war, maybe you should start fighting for your land or fight for other things, for maybe control of your economy and other issues that are more important than these silly fights that you get involved in, maybe so that you get some money and you get paid off by someone because you want money for nothing. You want to get money for nothing just for walking up and down the street. It's very pathetic when I see a young man who looks very eloquent and looks very educated making a fool of himself by really, he's not even into the army, but where did he get this kind of military gear actually? And why is it worn in a street? Why does he walk around wearing this in a street? Really, if you have never been to war, I think maybe you need to think twice. A war is something else. It's a different ball game altogether. It's not the fight with the police in the streets. War is different. War really takes lives, many lives. Look at what is happening in Ukraine. That's where the real war is being fought. If you go through that, you won't go in a street wearing military gear and pretending to be a leader of the veterans, or to be a war veteran, or to be a commander of some kind. You will feel very ashamed of yourself if you behave like that. You should find some men from these Zimbabweans. You ladies, you look like we are frustrated. Some of these ladies look like they are frustrated maybe from lack of presence of men in their families. Because if I had a wife, I would not go around victimizing other women like that. Because some of these people who are suffering through this operation Dudula are women also who are struggling, women strugglers. And these are women who are coming from homes maybe where they are just, maybe they don't have men, maybe they are frustrated because of that. Of course, having no man in your life should never make you go crazy like that. Find a man, have a happy life, live happily ever after. Some South Africans are getting there. I mean, I saw someone on TikTok saying, I have got a Zimbabwean, let me give you some. You must listen to the advert of that lady who has got a Shona guy. Unonaka se sugar, dog wako gunonipeza se toro. You see, a relationship is born and children are born out of such relationships. And life goes on instead of fighting each other like fools. And the lack of sex has its own psychological and physiological effects. That I can see from these pictures, really. These women need some kind of therapy and some kind of counseling for them to really behave like women with dignity. Stay in Ukraine, you can see what are South Africans doing in Ukraine if you think your country, no one is migrating from your country. They are South African who were, they are South African Russia. They are, I also realized that there were some South Africans who were down there in Venezuela there. South Africans are everywhere, which is acceptable. Why do you think that South Africans don't migrate? What kind of foolishness is that? This is a global world, global village. Everyone can go anywhere. And usually it helps the economy of the host country if it does have people coming with different ideas and different skills. You don't even understand that. And I can't teach you that. I'm just so really embarrassed and humiliated by this kind of behavior coming from fellow Africans. Umkondo is later on referred to as MK, never really fought a protracted war in South Africa. They tried, was it in 1960, 61, where they tried and really they weren't very successful. Later on in the 80s, they tried and they killed a lot of more civilians than the real soldiers in the streets, and everything just came to a grinding halt. So this MKM Mkondo was just a military wing that existed in other African countries, which led to many African countries being, bombed by the South African government, the apartheid government, because of harboring this. And now you are pretending that you did everything by yourself. You did nothing in South Africa. Of course, the riots that were done mostly by students, people who are young, is what helped liberate. Not only that liberated a plethora of other reasons, it was a combination, a group of reasons that liberated South Africa, foreigners included. Not Mkondo Wesize or whatever other military wing that you're pretending to be today. Soldiers meant to fight in South Africa that never fought an actual war in South Africa. These soldiers were trained so that they could fight in South Africa. I think maybe it could have been due to the strength of the South African army or due to the organization of the apartheid system, which made it impossible, almost impossible for Mkondo Wesize to, after training, to come down and fight on the South African soil. If you are really tough, go and help the police fight crime. You know that there are about, on average, 80 homicides committed in South Africa every day, the highest in the world. 58 people killed every day in South Africa. By South Africa, mostly South African. Go and check the statistics, because sometimes you end up pushing this blame on foreigners. Go and check. South Africans really, there are some South Africans out there who are really good at murdering children, good at murdering women, especially good at raping women. South Africans, go and help the police. Some of you really look tough. Instead of wasting time, chasing people who are doing their business, people who are trying to live their lives, go and help the police do that. I think people might even pay you for doing that. Might make some contribution. If you find a solution to a problem like that, people will make a contribution and make sure that you get paid for it, because that will really be an immense contribution to the community. Not going around really committing more crimes. These are crimes that you are committing because you are not the law. You are not the police. You don't even have a mandate to be doing what you are doing, but you are doing it anyway. This is We Africa, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a pleasure to be with you on the channel. You must share, subscribe, and share with your friends, please.